Yes, I am excited on a Monday night. Hope you are as well here at the Voice of College Football. And I guess I should say it because this is a loving community here. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. And whatever situation you're in, I will simply say it once again. Happy Valentine's Day. I did receive a little heart from my daughter there. That was kind and sweet of her. We shared our gifts, and we have a little bit more of that going on. So very nice to see everyone here. Happy Valentine's Day one more time. Okay. Love out of the way. Hardcore college football discussion debate. And I believe by the end of the night, there will be a little less love maybe exchanged when I unveil my program ranking. So before we get to it, appreciate everybody being here, and we will get to your comments and your questions and open up the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football. We will do that as soon as I run through my 130 all the way up to number one program rankings. So let's understand this. These are not team rankings for 2021. Nor are they team rankings for 2022. Of course, those teams, the performance in 21 and the expectations during this offseason leading into 22 have a huge, enormous impact on these program rankings, but these are program rankings. There is a difference between a football team and the football program. We released these program rankings about this time last year, and there was much debate and much fun and much to discuss. And a lot of people, of course, had some pretty amusing and ignorant comments. But hey, we've got a tremendous community here, and you guys typically bring forth some rather good points. And I'm sure the same will happen tonight. So let's get to it here at the Voice of College Football. Please hit the like button before you do anything, before you get mesmerized by these rankings 1 through 130, and especially there's first 50 or 60. I'm sure going to cause all sorts of, to try to determine, okay, Texas State or New Mexico State or Charlotte. Yeah, I'm sure that we're going to have quite the debate there. Here we go. Let me make sure I've got this coordinated with my list here before we run through the graphics. And keep in mind that there will be 131 FBS football teams this season with James Madison joining. I did not rank James Madison. They haven't played an FBS game as an FBS member, but I would expect them to ascend, about 20 or 30 spots into the rankings. I don't think they're going to be the dredge or the bottom of the FBS. All right, at number 130, of course, we've got UConn at 1-11 and 7-41. So I've got two figures there on each panel. What they represent is last year's record, and then also the record for that school going back to 2017. So that's the last 2017 through 21, the last 5 football seasons. That's the second number there. Last year's rank for UConn at 126. And of course, they didn't play football 2 years ago, and they had their typical UConn type of season this year. And Jim Mora is taking over. So think of that. Jim Mora at UConn, former NFL head coach with the Seahawks and the Falcons, pretty successful at UCLA, trying to maybe make something out of UConn football for the first time since about 12 or 13 years ago under Randy Edsall at number 129. And making the distinguishing factor here would be that UMass beat UConn by 2 touchdowns. That is the distinguishing factor, even though I thought about lifting UConn above UMass because of Jim Mora. UMass at number 129, 1-11 last season, 10-40 in the past 5. Akron has lowered its ranking from 125 to 128, 2-10 this past season, just 14-42 the past 5 seasons. New Mexico State, not to be confused with New Mexico. They pretty much both suck, but New Mexico State at 2-10 last year, and they are 127. Then we go up to Texas State, playing a little bit better football this last season under Jake Spavital, who took over the program in 2019, and Texas State now 4-8 after a 10-38 run There's New Mexico out of the Mountain West at 3-9. So they do play a difficult schedule, considering the Mountain West is one of the more difficult group of 5 schools. Bowling Green has been on a horrendous run, but they were slightly better this past year at 4-8. And they check in at 124. At number 123, we've got Rice. Rice at 4-8. And there you see the awful record for the past 5 seasons. South Alabama, now coached under Kane Womack, and he's done a nice job. This was his first season at 5-7, so a significant improvement for South Alabama this one season. Talk about a significant improvement. UTEP almost won a bowl game. They played, who did they play in the bowl game? That was Fresno State, correct? They played Fresno State in a bowl game, and they played them rather well. This was a program that was winning 2 games max for many years. But in recent years, much improved. 7-6 this past season, an almost bowl winner over a really good Fresno State team. And they up their mark to 121 from 130. UNLV out of the Mountain West, maybe the worst program in the conference at 2-10 this past season, 15-39. Louisiana Monroe, they check in at 4-8 this past season at number 119. There we've got our first dip into the Power 5. Jed Fish in Arizona. They dropped all the way from 95 to 118, 1-11. Bad enough to lose to Northern Arizona. Finally won a Pac-12 game for the first time in, they lost, what was it? I forget the count now. Was it around 21 consecutive games? Kevin Sumlin did not do the job there. They were all excited and pumped, and most people expected, okay, Kevin Sumlin, Arizona football is usually decent. He should be able to get something done there. No, train wreck. But there is hope on the way again. They played better down the stretch of the season, almost upset Washington, finally won a Pac-12 game. And then, of course, they've got Jaden DeLora, the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year as a freshman Offensive Player of the Year, comes in as a transfer quarterback. At number 117, we've got Old Dominion playing much better football, reaching a bowl game this past season at 6-6. And they have upped to their mark by 10 spots over last season. Middle Tennessee at 116. They got a bowl win at 7-6. And again, this is a program that's on the rise and on the rise in our rankings. All right, where is Kansas? Where is Kansas? They're usually the worst in the Power 5. They've got Arizona to thank. But Lance Leopold is a capable coach coming in from Buffalo. He could win at Kansas. It is possible that he could, if given the right resources, facilities, backing, and support by the university, maybe Kansas has a chance to do something. And think, Texas fans, you lost to Kansas. You lost to this bunch this past season. So that was Kansas's one shining moment for the past decade or so. They beat Texas, and they're 2-10 this past season. All right, at number 114, we got a South Florida that, my goodness, South Florida, they were one of the original pillars of the group of 5, even before it was really the group of 5 under Jim Leavitt. But my goodness, Jeff Scott has had a rough time since leaving Clemson, raising the South Florida program. They were abysmal last year, and they are stuck at number 114, a drop of 11 spots. And talk about another proud group of 5 program that has hit the skids. Colorado State, 3-9 last season. They check in at number 113. At number 112, we've got a Florida international team that was having some decent seasons. And then last season was a train wreck at 1-11. And so FIU checks in at number 112. Then we go to Charlotte. Will Healy took over in 2019. They have slowly developed, gotten better. They turned in a 5-7 season this past year. They beat Duke. And so we've got Charlotte at 111. How are you folks hanging in out there? We'll get to the big boys here real quick. Georgia State, 8-5. And of course, they almost knocked off Auburn. which maybe in a year or two won't be such a big deal. But they knocked off Auburn, nearly did, pulled off the upset on the Plains. But Georgia State, an improving team, as you can see right there at 8-5. Previous to that, they were only 12-25. San Jose State had a really odd season 2 years ago in that they were playing abysmal football. They've had the same head coach this entire run. Brent Brennan's been around for that entire 5 seasons that we're ranking these programs, and San Jose State jumped up in the COVID year of 2020 and won at the Mountain West at 7-0. They went 7-1 that season with a bowl loss, but they were back down to 5-7 this past year. Georgia State, going the wrong way. Bam! North Texas 108, 6-7. North Texas, the Mean Green. Typically a bowl team, typically a team that's winning 9 or 10 games, but not the last several seasons. You see the 5-year mark, just 2 games over 500. Butch Jones, my goodness, what a rough first season at Arkansas State, taking over for Blake Anderson, who won or tied for 5 consecutive Sun Belt championships. Blake Anderson, the end of his run, not pretty. He's moved on. Butch Jones, at Arkansas State, only 2-10 this past season. They dropped to 107 from last year's 96 ranking. Got another first-year head coach here to talk about in Stan Drayton. He was just hired to take over for Rod Carey, who pretty much lost the locker room and lost a ton of football games, 3-9 this past season. Temple at 106. Time to check in on Vandy. So Arizona, Kansas, Vandy. They never let us down, do they? Vandy was 0-10 last season, 2020. Follow that up with 2-10, but another winless slate in the SEC. So they're working on something in the range of 20 consecutive SEC losses. They're horrible. They only won 16 games out of the last 62. Kent State's better than Vandy. 7-7. They made the MAC championship game before getting knocked around by Northern Illinois. There you see the 5-year record's not great, but Kent State's been pretty darn good the last 2 years. And under Sean Lewis. Miami of Ohio at number 103 at 7-6, and they beat Kent State head-to-head. That broke my tie right there between the Red Hawks and the mighty Golden Flashes. Eastern Michigan checks in at number 102. They were 111 last year. They finished at 7-6 this year. We give them a bump. Ball State at 6-7 coming out of the MAC as well. The MAC, this is pretty much their sweet spot around number 100 in the country. You got Georgia Southern checking in at number 100. They had a decent run, but really took it on the chin this past season at 3-9. So we docked them 8 spots. Georgia Southern followed up by, as we make our way into the top 100, Southern Miss at 3-9. The Golden Eagles, a proud football tradition, but nothing going on there right now as they drop 8 spots to number 99. The Bobcats, the mighty former Frank Solich's, he had a tremendous run there after his Nebraska tenure. But the last 2 years, Ohio has fallen on hard times. You see a 3-9 and a 30-24. So that's 27-15 outside of that 5-year run. And they even had a bad 2020. So they are falling and not on the right course in Athens, Ohio. At number 97, we've got Louisiana Tech. They've been strong the past few seasons, had a 10-3 season mixed in there recently, and beat Miami in a bowl game 2 years ago. But here they are coming off a 3-9 campaign, and so we dropped them to number 97. Toledo Rockets at 7-6 in the MAC. It appears as though just about everybody in the MAC is 7-6 or 6-7. They pretty much lose to everybody outside of the conference and beat up on each other. Toledo, the Rockets at 7-6 in a nice 35-23 5-year run. Duke, with a new head coach and Mike Elko, takes over for, of course, David Cutcliffe. Cutcliffe had a tremendous second half. Well, the David Cutcliffe tenure pretty much took over in that he got the Duke job. It took him like 5 or 6 years to make anything of Duke. They went to the ACC championship game in 2013. They were good, meaning 8-5 kind of good for 5-6 years. And David Cutcliffe looked like he had it rolling there at Duke. Like, okay, this is an upper echelon ACC team. And for the past 5 years or so, they've been pretty awful. especially inside the last 3 to 4. Cutcliffe gets fired. Mike Elko, let's see if he can make anything of Duke football. At number 94, we've got Bailey Zappi, who set all sorts of passing records, including breaking Joe Burrow's touchdown and passing yardage mark. He's off to try to make it in the NFL. And I'm sorry, I've got myself mixed up here. Western Michigan's up next. And of course, their big win this past season was against Pitt, the ACC champions. And Western Michigan with a nice season at 8-5. They check in at 94. Northern Illinois, that's our MAC champion. Not a good program prior to 2021. Thomas Hammock took them over in 2019. And he's done a nice job with the program. And again, they win the MAC championship and took Coastal Carolina to the last play of the game, 47-41. So we like what's going on there with the Huskies. At number 92, a curious Tulane team that took Oklahoma to the wire. They were coming off a string of 6-6 campaigns, going to bowl games under Willie Fritz. But they really went into a tailspin over the last portion of the season to finish at 2-10 in the American Conference. At number 191 is Troy. Once Neil Brown left, they have declined considerably, has Troy, and they finished 5-7 this past season under, now they've got a new coach coming in, and John Sumrall. Number 90, you got Lance Leopold, who did a fine job. He is reflected by the 5-year record at 34-24. Lance Leopold moves to Kansas. Buffalo took it on the chin this past season at 4-8. They are at number 90. At number 89, East Carolina. Proud football program, football tradition there. But take away the 7-5 from this past season. They were on a 13-32 run. And boy, they had a nice season under Mike Houston in his third year to lift them to 7-5. Did not get a chance to play in the bowl game that they were supposed to against Boston College. That takes us up to number 89. Let me switch files here because we just didn't have enough room. So we pick it up at number 88. And we do so with Hawaii. Interesting story there. Todd Graham, the former Pitt and Arizona State coach, did an okay job there, but there were all sorts of allegations of his misconduct, mistreatment of coaches and players. So he is forced out. And of course, Timmy Chang, the Hawaii legend, has taken over for this 2022 season. Hawaii's been marginal. They did make a Mountain West championship game a couple of years ago. They're at number 88. Utah State, what a story here. Been a down program, and much like San Jose State in the Mountain West in 2020, they came out of nowhere and ran right past the Boise States, San Diego States, Fresno States, the upper echelon of the Mountain West, won the conference championship game and beat a Pac-12 team, although what does that mean these days? Beat a Pac-12 team in their bowl game to finish 11-3. So one of these difficult trajectories to make. Was that an aberration, or has Utah State got something going? Under Blake Anderson, they are at number 87. 86, we check in with Central Michigan coming off a fine 9-4 campaign, and they raised their ranking by 23 spots. Navy. Ken Niumatalolo has had a outstanding career at Navy, but this is now at least 2 consecutive down seasons for the midshipmen. Typically winning 8 to 10 games per season, getting to decent bowl games. That's not been the case at Navy for the past 3 seasons now. So the rank continues to drop for the midshipmen after a 4-8 campaign, 28-33, winning 45, maybe 45% of its games. That's not been what Navy football's been under Niumatalolo. So we'll see if the veteran coach can right the ship, as they say, pardon the pun, and get Navy back on track. Western Kentucky, that's who I was looking for a few minutes ago. Bailey Zappi breaks Joe Burrow's records, moves on to the NFL, 9-5, Conference USA division winner, and they had one of their better seasons to raise their ranking by 21 spots. Rutgers, interesting program here. Just getting obliterated in the Big Ten. Lost 21 consecutive conference games until Greg Schiano takes over. They go 3-5 in the COVID year. I was going to say the strike year, in the COVID year. And then, of course, they show up and play pretty good football this past year. Still a long, long way to go for Rutgers, but they are possibly respectable. They can now compete with the Illinois Northwesterns and the like in the Big Ten after a 5-8 year, and they got to play a New Year's Day bowl game against Wake Forest. At number 82, Craig Bowl in Wyoming. Consistent winners, get to bowl games, win 55% of their games, and there you see it reflected in the 5-year record. FAU had a down year at 5-7 after, of course, Lane Kiffin had success there. So he has bolstered that 5-year record. They're not as good nearly as a program as they are now. So keep in mind that by showing the 5-year record, I'm just giving indication as to what they've done over the past 5 years, of course. But for many of these programs, they are a completely different program today than they were 5 years ago. Some of them are slightly different. Others are pretty much exactly the same program. Alabama. Is Alabama any different in 2022 than in 2017? No. Same program, same guy in charge, recruiting the same, doing it exactly. So there's a measurement of what happened last season, what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and what was going on 3, 4, 5 years ago. Is that relevant to today? Is it impactful to what's going on today? What's the recruiting going forward? Where's the trajectory? Is there a new head coach? How well do we expect the new head coach to do? And you'll see that more reflected as we go on. Number 80, Philip Montgomery, 2 consecutive nice seasons at 6-3 and 7-6. And the Golden Hurricane played 2 extremely difficult opponents, Ohio State and Oklahoma State. Tough this past year. They are number 80. Marshall's a good football program. They're 7-6. There you see the nice 5-year record at 39-23. They are at number 79. Carl Durrell and Colorado had a nice first season in the COVID year at 4-2. We kind of knew those were smoke and mirrors figures within the Pac-12. They had statistically the worst offense in the country this past season and are 4-8, and they dropped to number 78. Likewise, Jeff Collins having a rough time at Georgia Tech. He's now been coaching there for 3 seasons, and they're not getting better. 3-9, 21-37 in the past 5 seasons. Georgia Tech at 77. Nevada has a new head coach. Coaching changed there for the Wolfpack as they finished off at 8-5. They lose their NFL quarterback in Carson Strong, and Ken Wilson is their new head coach here in 2022. Up to number 75, we go to a tremendous job being done by Jonathan Smith. This was a program that was in the 110 range a couple of years ago, and of course, Jonathan Smith with a nice job of getting to a bowl game. It's still a monumental feat to do anything there at Oregon State and get players to play there and go there. But they are an improving team there in the Pac-12 and came within 1 weekend of getting to a Pac-12 championship game. Dino Babers, Syracuse. Dino Babers in 2018 went 10-3. His tenure otherwise is 15 and, do the math, Mark, 32. 15-32, and it's even worse in the ACC because he grabs most of his wins out of conference. If your name's not Clemson and it's not a Friday night, Dino Babers is underachieving. I don't know how much longer he can last at Syracuse. They did play 3 consecutive games during midseason in which they took Clemson, Florida State, and Wake Forest to the last play of the game, lost them all. Syracuse at number 74. Illinois, interesting program here under Brett Bielema, coming off a not-so-good recruiting class, however. Worst class in the Big Ten by far, but a 5-7 campaign in which they beat Nebraska and Minnesota. They won 4 out of 9 in the Big Ten. So Brett Bielema, we'll see what he can do. He's a proven winner, of course, at Arkansas and Wisconsin. Tougher job there at Illinois, the Illini at number 73. And a team that beat Illinois and won Conference USA is Texas San Antonio. They have not been a strong program, but they suddenly are now. And Texas San Antonio 12-2, winning its conference and moving up 30 spots. Justin Wilcox, still the coach at Cal. He continues to not win. They are only like 12-20 in, I don't even think it's that good. They're winning like 30-some% of their Pac-12 games under Justin Wilcox. He's a defensive whiz, but Cal just can't get over the hump. They turn in another 5-7 season. Washington State, quite the job here. So consider what Jake Dickert faced this past season. So he was the linebackers coach. Then he became the defensive coordinator. And about mid-season was the entire controversy with Nick Rolovich, the incoming coach from Hawaii, who only coached there 1 year in replacing Mike Leach. And Rolovich and the school, of course, did not agree on vaccine protocol. Not only did Rolovich get fired, but half of his coaching staff, and this is mid-season. Dickert takes over as defensive coordinator, takes over the team, hires coaches mid-season, gets Washington State to a bowl game, almost gets them to the Rose Bowl, despite that 6-7 finish. Washington State and Jake Dickert give them some accolades. This is the free fall of the offseason. Washington. Just a couple of years ago, Washington, of course, reached the college football playoff in 2016. They went to the Fiesta Bowl in 2017. They had one of the most respected coaches in college football in Chris Peterson. He handpicked Jimmy Lake, who appeared to be ready for the job as a tremendous top-of-the-line defensive coordinator. Jimmy Lake, we could go through the saga, but basically could not handle the job. They did have a 3-1 season in the COVID year of 2020, in which they beat Oregon and should have been playing in the Pac-12 championship game. So it looked like they were in good shape entering 2021, thus the number 19 ranking. Peterson built the program. They're recruiting in the top 15 in the nation. Jimmy Lake's handpicked. They go 3-1. They beat Oregon. This past season, they were abysmal. And Jimmy Lake could not handle the job on the field or off the field. He gets fired. Kalen DeBoer steps in, and we'll see what Washington football becomes. But for right now, it is a not best of situations there in Seattle. The Huskies drop from 19, free fall, 19 to 69. Hugh Freeze is still at Liberty. He gets rumored for just about every job, especially in the South or the SEC. And of course, was talked about much this week with Brian Harsin on the ropes, but he's still at Liberty. And Liberty is a pretty good darn good football program, 32-12 the past 5 seasons. This is a wild card selection right here. This is a difficult program to track. If you're just going by the record, they're abysmal. They should be worse than number 67. They should be lower than Rutgers and lower than, well, not necessarily, about on the par with Rutgers and Illinois. Yes. Actually, Nebraska went 1-8 in the Big Ten this past year, and Illinois went 4-5. But we like the Casey Thompson addition. We like what they've done elsewhere in the transfer portal. We look at the performance on the field as well. And Nebraska dropped considerably from 49 to 67, but I still kept them ahead of those two programs in the Big Ten. Nebraska football, it's got to happen in 2022. They have got to reach postseason play. At number 66, you got Army, 9-4 with a bowl win against Missouri. Jeff Monken does a tremendous job. He's won 44 of 64 in the past 5 years. Virginia Tech, this program has been going in the wrong direction under Justin Fuente. That's why he no longer has employment. Justin Fuente took over a rock-solid program under Frank Beamer. His first 2 years were good, 10-4, 9-4, reached an ACC championship game, and ever since then, sub 500. After finishing over 500 every year going back to 1992. Brent Pry steps in from Penn State. Good hire. No head coaching experience, but defensive coordinator at Penn State. The boy can recruit. So he comes in to resurrect Virginia Tech football that was blown out by Maryland to conclude 2021. TCU, another situation with a new head coach. Sonny Dykes comes in. He's been around. He's been at Cal, Louisiana Tech, and SMU. He's done a fine job at all those stops at TCU without Gary Patterson for the first time in a long, long time, 20-some years, is at number 64. At number 63, you got UAB coming off a fine 9-4 campaign, 43-20 the past 5 seasons, and with a bowl win for the Blazers against BYU. App State, difficult to rank to a certain extent. They dominated the Sun Belt Conference. They've been superseded by Louisiana and Coastal Carolina. They did make the conference championship game this past year, but clearly were outclassed in the title game and in the bowl game. And Sean Clark inherited a great program. He's maintaining it, but they're not nearly as dominant as they were. App State at 62. Now, here's the situation with Louisiana. If Billy Napier was still there, that ranking would be significantly higher. They're coming off a 13-1 Sun Belt championship. I want to see if they can be just as good without Billy Napier. Louisiana at 61. And I got these teams grouped together because of various components. They all compete against each other, App State, Louisiana, and Coastal Carolina. Of course, Jamie Chadwell has done a remarkable job, especially the past 3 years at Coastal Carolina, coming off an 11-2 campaign. Rhett Lashley gets his first head coaching gig at SMU, taking over for Sonny Dykes. Dykes did a nice job, especially the past few years, in replacing Chad Morris. SMU at 8-4 in the tough American Conference. They are number 59. Maryland and Mike Loxley checks in at 58, up from 67 last year after a bowl win and a winning season for the first time in forever at Maryland at 7-6. Let's keep it going, Mike Loxley, to go up those rankings. And look out for this free fall. Stanford. I have been giving David Shaw a bit of the benefit of the doubt. Of course, he's had a tremendous tenure at Stanford, but it is deteriorating by the season. 4-2 was his 2020 season in the COVID year, but 3-9 and 4-8 in the last 2 full seasons. Stanford football, there are issues there. They're just not getting the job done. Not recruiting, not executing anywhere near the level that they were 2017 and prior to that. This program's at a crossroads, possibly, and David Shaw, one of the most respected figures in college football, having a rough time the past few seasons at Stanford. Memphis checks in at number 56. Of course, Ryan Silverfield took over for Mike Norvell in 2020 and has maintained the program to a certain extent, but 6-6, not a good showing for him. Took over a program that under Fuente and Norvell was excellent, competing for conference championships. Memphis has to get better. Air Force with a big season at 10-3. They beat Louisville in a bowl game. And of course, Troy Calhoun, one of our favorites here, the voice of college football, one of the guys that I interviewed several times when we first started our channel. And Air Force, of course, they will not throw the football, but they will run it down your throats and out execute you every time, in a continued force in the Mountain West. And again, coming off a tremendous season. Virginia, a difficult ranking for me here. Bronco Mendenhall, tremendous. I have great respect for Bronco Mendenhall as a head coach. Well, he's gone. He lifted this program from 2-10 its first year to an ACC Coastal Division Championship, an Orange Bowl, and multiple bowl game appearances. They went 6-6 this past year, couldn't play the bowl game. There you see the 34-28 record, and that is after that horrible start. So now you replace Bronco Mendenhall, a known factor, with Tony Elliott, first-time head coach coming in from Clemson. I got Virginia at 54, but they got Brennan Armstrong coming back as one of the best quarterbacks in college football in 2022. Talk about up-and-coming coaches. Jeff Hafley at Boston College turns in a 6-6 year. He did not have his number one signal caller, Phil Jerkovic, for most of the season. That hurt them. It'll be interesting to see if they can compete with the likes of Wake Forest, Louisville, NC State, and others here in 2022. So there, we've made it through the top 130 minus 53. You do the math. Let's go to our next folder here and pick it up with number 52. And at number 52, we've got one of the high risers here, increasing all the way from 88 up to number 52. Dana Hogerson in Houston. Of course, they're coming off a conference championship game appearance against Cincinnati. They lost the other game to Texas Tech. They beat Auburn in a bowl game. They're 12-2. Dana Hogerson's proved he can coach. If he can't recruit at Houston, he's not a recruiter, doesn't like to recruit. But if he can't recruit at Houston with all the talent in that metro area, and moving to the Big 12 should help. Texas Tech, curious situation here. Matt Wells, hired from Utah State, got off to a rough start. His first 2 seasons were not good. This season, he gets off to a 5-2 start. They beat Houston in the opener. They lose by 1 point to Kansas State. He gets fired at 5-3 after losing by 1 point. 5-2 start, beat Houston. Won 3 of those games in the Big 12. Well, his replacement, Joey McGuire, has done the job. And they finished off a 7-6 campaign by beating Mississippi State, throttling the Bulldogs in a bowl game. So Texas Tech's now at number 51. You got now we're into the Power 5, and we're into the mid-tier to slightly low-tier Power 5, and it's difficult to distinguish these programs. Louisville's coming off a rather disappointing campaign that follows a definite disappointing campaign that followed a great first campaign for Scott Satterfield at 8-5 and winning a bowl game over Mississippi State after he took over the train wreck from Bobby Petrino. Scott Satterfield is at a crossroads at Louisville. Is he going to forever be a 6-win head coach, or is he going to challenge Clemson, and if not the Tigers, NC State and Florida State in that division? Louisville at number 50. West Virginia, Neil Brown needs to find an offense, needs to find a quarterback. They scored 6 points in their bowl game against Minnesota. They were one of the more anemic offenses in college football, in the Power 5 for sure. Neil Brown, 6-4, 6-7 his 2 seasons coming in from Troy. West Virginia is at number 49. At number 48, another difficult ranking here because you've got Tom Allen, who's recruiting out of his mind. He just brought in the best recruiting class in the history of Indiana football. The 2 years prior, his teams went 8-5, almost beat Tennessee in a bowl game. Then they went 6-2 and lost an Outback Bowl to Ole Miss, and were on the cusp of a top 10 finish in 2020. Then they fall flat on their face, lose Michael Penix at quarterback. They did go get Connor Baslick from Missouri to be the 2022 starter. Indiana coming off a winless season in the Big Ten, but I'm not going to overreact here. They're number 48 in our rankings. At number 47, UCLA. The record looks mighty good at 8-4, especially considering Chip Kelly's first couple seasons at UCLA. But they did not beat a team with a winning record. They lost to every team that they played with a winning record. And there you got it, 8-4. Chip Kelly comes back for another season to see if he can contend in the Pac-12 South. At number 46, we got Florida State, Mike Norvell and company. They came within this close of falling to 0-5, and that might have been it for him coming off that 3-6 first season. Needs to find better quarterback play, more dynamic playmakers on the outside. They lost Travis Hunter, of course, their prized recruit, to Jackson State. 5-7 for Florida State. Need to get to postseason play for the first time since 2017. At number 45, we get to Kansas State and Chris Kleiman taking over for the legendary Bill Snyder. He's done a decent job. He's 20-16. They did get a bowl win this past season to finish at 8-5. Mizzou and Eli Drinkwitz. He's pretty much doing the same job as his predecessor, Barry Odom, did. You go 6-6, you go to bowl games. He went 5-5. Now he goes 6-7. They lose to Army in the bowl game. But the Eli Drinkwitz recruiting class, top 15 in the nation. They're at number 44. South Carolina and Shane Beamer. I think we're all impressed with Shane Beamer's work at South Carolina. He had to play 4 different starting quarterbacks, and none of them were real good this past season. Now he's got Spencer Radler, and he's got his tight end, Austin Stogner, coming in from Oklahoma. South Carolina with a bowl win against North Carolina. The trajectory should be up. but the schedule is brutal for the Gamecocks in 2022. At number 42, all right. They cycle up, they cycle down, they cycle up, they cycle down. Pat Fitzgerald, he's doing the best he can. He's a really good football coach, and everybody knows when Northwestern goes 3-9 what the deal is with the Wildcats. They have won the Big Ten Western Division and made the championship game, and in both games challenged Ohio State deep into the third quarter. That was 2 out of 4 years. The other 2 years out of the 4, they went 3-9 and were one of the worst teams in Power 5. And that's what we're looking at right now. And I don't think they're going to bounce back this season. Are they going to be as bad as they were last year at 1-8 in the Big Ten? Probably not. But they take a tumble in the rankings from 23 to 42. And keep in mind, they were number 23 in the nation, coming off 2 Big Ten championship game appearances in 3 years and a top 10 finish in the nation. At number 41, Mountain West, repped by Fresno State. The Bulldogs at 10-3 this past season. Look at that fine 5-year run by Fresno State. And then we've got Boise State at 40, but 7-5 at Boise State. Look at the 5-year record. And with all the controversy and criticism surrounding Brian Harsin, who's the only football program in America right now that loves Brian Harsin and wishes they had him? Boise State. He was 69-19 there. And there you see 30, let's do the math, 38-8 the previous 4 seasons. They tumbled to 7-5 under Andy Avalos in his first campaign since coming in from Washington. San Diego State, as we stay in the Mountain West under Brady Hoke, turned in a nice 12-2 campaign. They beat Utah. And the Aztecs have been really good. Look at that 5-year run. At number 38, BYU, difficult program to evaluate. They don't play in a conference, of course. They lost to UAB in a bowl game, but they had some significant wins, especially over the Pac-12. They beat Washington State. They beat Utah, of course, and Arizona State. BYU at number 38. UCF and Gus Malzahn. Dylan Gabriel moves on to Oklahoma. UCF at 9-4. Gus Malzahn, I think, is going to do a tremendous job there and carry on the tradition left to him by one Josh Heupel and Scott Frost. UCF, the class for the most of the last 5 or 6 years, at least, of the group of 5. Arizona State, we still need to wade through the NCAA allegations. They did fire Antonio Pierce as defensive coordinator, and he was reportedly in the midst of that controversy of the COVID restrictions that were violated with the recruiting violations. And it looks like Herm Edwards will survive. But again, we haven't yet had all the details uncovered of what happened there. Arizona State coming off an 8-5 campaign. They lost to Wisconsin in a bowl game at number 36. Now, you talk about a tough call to make. Okay, Auburn should be higher than this. They've got more talent on the roster. They're coming off a season, yes, in which they went 6-7, but shoot, they outplayed Alabama. That's how good they can be on occasion. That's how much talent they've got. But Harsin just had the worst 3 months a head coach could ever imagine, who did not get fired. So he saved his job, probably just because they didn't want to pay out the buyout. And so he's back in 2022, and man, does he have a lot of work to do. Their recruiting was not good. It's not good for 23. They lost the DC and the OC under very odd conditions, circumstances. When a respected guy like Derek Mason leaves for a reported $400,000 less job, doesn't speak well of Brian Harsin. We shall see. I got Auburn ranked. They're loaded with talent, roster, recruiting has been there in the past, resources, football factory. That's what gives them that 35 ranking, coming off a rough 6-7 and 1 spot lower than Purdue. Purdue, did they turn a corner? Aiden O'Connell had a tremendous year. They beat 2 top 5 teams. They won a bowl game against Tennessee. They looked good every week except when they played Ohio State. But the 2 years prior to that were ugly. Purdue, are they going to be up and down? Are they Northwestern? We shall see. At number 34, Wake Forest, Dave Clawson. My goodness, can this guy coach? Typically 7-5, 8-4, but then they break through with Sam Hartman at quarterback to win the division, go to the ACC championship game, win a bowl game, albeit against Rutgers. There you go. Dave Clawson, testament to him and recruiting in the 70s, and they turn out finishes like this. And right there with them, the team that beat them in the ACC title game, Pitt, lose to Michigan State in the bowl game, minus Kenny Pickett. Pat Narduzzi, after just a string of 6 and 7 win seasons since he left Michigan State, finally breaks through, and we'll see if Pitt's able to maintain that kind of level in the ACC Coastal Division. Mike Leach leaves Washington State, comes to Mississippi State, has a dismal 2020 campaign at 3-7. They couldn't score. They couldn't throw the ball as he's accustomed, but they took off this past season on occasion. Mississippi State looks amazing. Will Rogers is back at quarterback. They beat Texas A&M. In particular, they took Ole Miss to the wire. They play in the toughest division in college football. They are my number 31 team. At number 30, another one of these tough calls because it's not a consistent program. They've got a head coach who's underachieved everywhere he's been. They've got a team that was on the brink of going 5-1 with a win over Oklahoma and in prime position to get to the Big 12 championship game. And then they completely collapsed, even to the point that they lost to Kansas. They've got all the money, all the resources. They just brought in a top 5 recruiting class. So even despite another epic failure on the field, bring in a top 5 recruiting class. And yes, wink, wink, there's money being handed out. But they were doing that even before the money was apparently being handed out. At least they can do it legally now. Texas at number 30. Texas at number 30, another tough ranking there. I like Tennessee a little bit better. I love what Josh Heupel's doing. I think the guy can coach. He's got Hendon Hooker, who threw 31 TDs with 3 picks this past season, coming back in 2022. Again, this is not necessarily a projection for 2022, nor a reflection of 2021. This is a program ranking and not an all-time program ranking, or Tennessee would be somewhere in the top 15. Again, just to remind you of where we stand on this, but this is a current program ranking, and Tennessee has got mojo going. Josh Heupel doing all the right things, number 29. All right, I've given a beating to Dave Doeren in the past, and just to reiterate the reasons why, he was at one point going into 2020 a 37% winner in the ACC, 37% winning his conference games, getting to bowl games basically because they play William and Mary, East Carolina, and James Madison all the time. All right. The stock is rising on Dave Doeren. I admit, 9-3 this past season, strong season. They beat Clemson. They lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Miami. They're a good team. They were a good team the past 2 seasons at 8-3, 9-3. I want to see more. NC State at 28. Minnesota turned in a fine 9-4 campaign. Curious losses to Illinois and Bowling Green, but PJ Fleck is there. The fans love him. The recruits love him. He's getting about as much talent to Minneapolis as you can expect. And again, they beat Wisconsin to conclude the season and played within a couple points of Iowa, or they would have been playing in the Big Ten championship game. Minnesota coming off 9-4. And remember the last full season Minnesota played? 11-2, top 10 finish. Minnesota at 27. Iowa State. Okay, what's the deal on Matt Campbell? Respected coach, one of the young stars on the sideline in this sport, but he had Brock Purdy at quarterback, Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the nation, Xavier Hutchinson, his best wide receiver, coming back, Charlie Kohler, one of the best tight ends in college football, coming back, and an offensive line that was rated one of the top 5 offensive lines in the nation, with everybody coming back, including an All-American center. And they went 7-6. So Matt Campbell, has he hit a ceiling? Let's not overrank his accomplishments at Iowa State. It's impressive when you take over a 3-win football program and you win 7 or 8 each year. But when at this point, he was supposed to break through this past season. It didn't happen. Sometimes things go against you. I understand it's not like he's been knocking on the door for 5 years, but I had to drop Iowa State all the way from 14 coming off the Fiesta Bowl win and the Big 12 championship appearance where they were supposed to knock down the door last season and didn't even come close. Had to drop them back to 26. This is where it becomes difficult. Ranking a group of 5 powerhouse against the Power 5. Cincinnati, of course, we saw what they did. They did struggle against some marginal competition in the group of 5. Tulane, Tulsa, and a few others, Navy. But college football playoff appearance, they didn't embarrass themselves in the game. Luke Fickell is still there and one of the young stars in college football. Baylor, meteoric rise from 66 to 24. I didn't want to overreact to the one season. However, I also did not want to overreact to 2-7 in 2020. Since this is a program, you talk about a roller coaster ride. Matt Rule takes them from the bottom where Art Briles left them due to all of his silliness, mischief, and evil. I was being a little bit too kind with silliness. And then Matt Rule raises them to a bowl team at 6-6, and then 11 wins and a major bowl win, getting to a Sugar Bowl at least, and winning the Big 12 championship or getting to a Big 12 championship game. But anyway, Matt Rule, boom, 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 up the ladder. Then Dave Aranda takes over. It's an odd season to judge in 2020, but they back down to 2-7, then pop it up to win the Big 12. They are the Big 12 champions. So this is about where it feels right to rank them, trying to weigh in all those factors. Baylor, we know, doesn't win year after year after year after year after year. But man, what a strange 10-year ride for this program under Briles, Rule, and Aranda. They're number 24 now. Talk about a strange ride and a difficult ranking. USC. They probably shouldn't be this high. Based on the results on the field, they should not be this high. They should be sitting where Nebraska is. Although they've been successful much more recently than Nebraska. They just played in a Big 12 or a Pac-12 championship game 2 years ago. So just the one awful season, 5-7 a couple years ago under JT Daniels. So Helton's gone. Here comes Lincoln Riley. So I've got to weigh that into the equation. He's taking over recruiting. Don't look at the rankings right now. He still has time to work on this 22 class, still getting in a few other guys. The transfer portal is humming. Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, and others. The 23 class is smoking as well. USC, they got to fix the defense in a hurry. They're going to outscore people in 2022, coming off 4-8. But again, what does that mean? USC at number 23. Now we go from complete wild card to steady as a rock. Iowa went to the Big Ten championship game, completely outclassed in that game, completely outclassed in their other 2 losses regular season. Kirk Ferentz is a tremendous coach, runs a tremendous program. They consistently win, go to bowl games. You see 43-18 the past 5 years, but he's not won the Big Ten since 2004. And doesn't seem to really want to stretch the program to get there. And what I'm alluding to there is not going out and getting a transfer portal quarterback when you've got the 100th offense in the country and you have been trotting out one of the worst passing attacks in the Big Ten year after year after year after year after year. I understand you've got a special teams and a defense that win games for you, but why not try to win the conference? So that's my knock on Kirk Ferentz and Iowa, but they're rock solid and steady and brought in a good recruiting class. Florida's a wild card. The Dan Mullen regime ended poorly. He got off to a great start. He increased, and then he acted like a buffoon, and he fell off the rails. Billy Napier comes in, did not save the recruiting class, but he appears to be the guy for the job. And of course, he was tremendous at Louisiana. Florida at 6-7 last year under Dan Mullen. Billy Napier comes in, fresh start, number 21. North Carolina, disappointing season because Mack Brown, of course, came in. They only won 5 games the previous 2 seasons. He, boom, 7-6, win a bowl game, then 8-4, go to the Orange Bowl, and supposed to have a big top 10 year last year, and they fizzled. So they still have holes to plug on that roster. But Mack Brown still brought in a top 10 recruiting class. So coming off 6-7, losing Sam Howell, but considering the great recruiting class, number 20 for UNC. And the team that most likely they will contend with for the Coastal Division Championship at number 19, Miami. Their record doesn't really result in a 19th ranking either, but Mario Cristobal is a proven winner. They made some tremendous hires on the coaching staff. The recruiting class was spared, saved. Even the player average rating is top 6 in the country. But they are coming off 7-5, so I want to see it. It's got to play out. It's got to be reflected in the rankings because of the record on the field. So Miami at 19. Number 18, what a job Sam Pittman has done. Why this guy's never been a head coach before now. Sam Pittman takes over a program that was winless in the SEC 2 consecutive years, 0-16 in the conference, goes 3-7, and that doesn't sound impressive, but if you watched it, it was impressive. And then this past season, Arkansas beat Texas A&M. They lost to Alabama by a touchdown. They beat Mississippi State. They took Ole Miss to a 2-point conversion, the final play of the game. They beat Penn State in a bowl game. Arkansas on the move from 58 all the way up to 18. As we go to our another batch of clips here, let's find our number 17. And then there they are, on to the Big Ten and Michigan State. Mel Tucker took over a program that had flatlined and plateaued under Mark D'Antonio. Has a rough first year, and so we're going off of 1 year here, but it was impressive, and all the transfer additions and the recruiting is better than it's been in quite some time. So last year's ranking from 47-17, coming off a Peach Bowl win, Mel Tucker's got it going in East Lansing. We switch from Michigan State and a lot of volatile programs and situations that are difficult to predict and don't have much of a track record to a guy that's got a track record that can rank from a consistency standpoint with just about anybody in the country. Mike Leach, it's about 8-4 every year for him. But this past year, 12-2, came within an eyelash, like a measurement yardage mark, stopped at the goal line of a Big 12 championship. 12-2 this past season, tremendous bowl win over Notre Dame, 45-19 the past 5 years. We know what Oklahoma State football is. They deliver every year, same product. Utah, number 15, Kyle Whittingham finally gets to a Rose Bowl, wins the Pac-12. Congratulations to him. 40-20 the past 5 years. Talk about rock solid. That's your guy. Ole Miss. Now, here's a bit of a wild card. We're going off 1 season, so the big improvement from Lane Kiffin the first season, now to the second year, 10-3, finished close to the top 10 in the country. The recruiting is much improved. The transfer situation, people want to play at Ole Miss. They're number 14. All right. LSU not playing like the number 13 team in the country. 6-7 that followed 5-5. But what an odd situation. Of course, we just were reminded with Joe Burrow's presence on TV last night that this was one of the great teams of all time in 2019. In 2019, we just finished 2021. We're only 2 years removed from a 15-0 historic national championship team. But that was forever ago. Those players are gone. It's a new program, but it's a new program under Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly, sure, it's easy to make fun of the stupid videos and the inane attempt at a Southern accent, but the guy knows how to run a football program. And even though he didn't accomplish the ultimate goal at Notre Dame, he brought Notre Dame football back to what it was under Lou Holtz. He's now at LSU. He can run a program. I think he's going to run it well at LSU. At number 12, ooh, that's a lofty status, huh? But consider what Kentucky's done under Mark Stoops. And they're 40-23 the past 5 years, and they just won a New Year's Bowl game. They are right now the challenger, even though it doesn't seem to be a strong one, to Georgia in the SEC Eastern Division. Kentucky at number 12, coming off its best recruiting class of all time. That also factored into the ranking. Back to rock solid. Wisconsin, number 11. Only 9-4 this past year. Graham Mertz holds the keys to Wisconsin in a Big Ten championship run. They had one of the best defenses in the nation again this past season and won a bowl game. Number 10, Penn State. The record does not reflect the number 10 ranking for the past 2 years. 11-11. And they are losing a ton of defensive personnel that's headed to the NFL. They had a great defense when they were all together playing and healthy last year. Sean Clifford's back, and they're recruiting out of their minds. They just brought in probably James Franklin's best recruiting class. Penn State, number 10. I feel good about that selection. Dan Lanning takes over at Oregon. Mario Cristobal did a tremendous job. Sure, there were disappointments on the field this past season against Utah in particular, but they won a Rose Bowl. They won a Pac-12 championship or 2. And now, again, it gets turned over to Dan Lanning, who had to kind of save and mend and maintain that recruiting class and its top 25 status for 2022. But I'm pretty confident Dan Lanning's going to be a good hire in Eugene. All right, rising all the way from 21 all the way up to number 8 in the country, Michigan. Now, we've seen the drama over the past 6 weeks. So Jim Harbaugh is going to have to prove that he wants the job. He's still invested. He's still committed, and he's going to work hard, not just mail it in. He's not mailed it in the past. That's not what I'm alluding to. Just he needs to be invested. He needs to show some humility, and he needs to work his tail off to earn that job back. They had the tremendous playoff season, beat Ohio State. Is that an aberration? And win a Big Ten championship. Coming off a Big Ten title, playoff appearance, beating Ohio State 12-2. At number 7, yes, there were shockwaves heard all over the college football world when Lincoln Riley left for USC. And Sooner fans thought that the program was in peril. And even once Brent Venables was hired, that the offense would never be the same. But now that things have settled, he saved the 2022 recruiting class. And he's now showing that he can recruit quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks, and offensive skill players, and also promise toughness, discipline. Maybe Oklahoma's in better shape with Brent Venables. Coming off 11-2, and there you see the 5-year record. The 5-year records now for the rest of this presentation are going to be through the roof, as you can imagine. The elites of college football. Notre Dame also 56-10 under Brian Kelly the past 5 seasons. Chalk one of those losses up to Marcus Freeman, the new guy in town who lost the Fiesta Bowl. That's a slam dunk hire, home run hire by all accounts. But Marcus Freeman's never been the head coach, so let's not assume that Marcus Freeman is going to be a better head coach than Brian Kelly. Yes, he's got the rock star image. He's liked, but that's not all there is to running a football program. I have few doubts that Freeman is going to be an elite coach, but I'm not going to say it's a 100% guarantee. Texas A&M at number 5. Jimbo Fisher's doing a good job on the field, a decent job, but he's not meeting expectations. He's 34-13. That sounds good, but when you place it against Nick Saban and what LSU typically is, and the SEC Western Division and what Georgia's churning out, it's time for Jimbo Fisher to turn recruits into players. Number one class of all time. So that's what's reflected also in that. That's not built on going 8-4, 8-5. They did have the 9-1 2020 season. That's built on recruiting and Jimbo Fisher, and let's see it materialize on the field. Our fifth-ranked program, not team in the country, program, Texas A&M. All right. At number 4, we go to Clemson. Yeah, they took a hit last year. The offense was awful, especially the quarterback and offensive line. Also the wide receivers. Really, the running back position was the offense. We just actually cut a Clemson segment and talked about how much better the offense needs to be this year. The defense is elite, but they lose the mastermind in Brent Venables. What is Dabo without Brent Venables? We shall see. Last year, they were still the best team in the ACC, in my opinion, and should make a playoff run this season, coming off a bit of a down year, but they rescued it at 10-3, number 4 country team, number 4 program in the country. At number 3, Ohio State. Disappointing loss to Michigan. Did not accomplish its goals to win the Big Ten and go to the playoff. Still won the Rose Bowl 11-2. Ryan Day is still recruiting well, doing a great job. They fall a notch in the rankings from 2 to 3. Now your number 2 program in the country is your national champion and number 1 team. Georgia finally got over the hump. So all the Kirby bashing and Georgia 1980 talk, done, gone, obliterated by a devastating defense. Athletes on the offensive side, a great offensive line, and of course, Stetson Bennett, quarterback, who's coming back in 2022. This is the second best football program in the country. They have the most 5 stars on the roster. They're playing out of their minds, but they've done it once. They've been extremely good since 2017. 58-10 since Kirby took over. Amazing. And they finally accomplished it. This team, this program does it every year. And I did not even have to think about it. Even though Georgia won the national championship, Alabama is the program in college football. They just are. Yes, it can be argued. It should not be an excuse, but it can be argued that Alabama, without Mechie and Williams, lost a national championship game that was competitive down to the final 5 minutes. And with those 2 players, they might be notching another national title. But they lost fair and square. They are not the national champion. They're the number 2 team in the country. They are still the number 1 program. Gold standard, Alabama. All right. Let's look at your comments, then we'll open up the phone lines. It took me forever to get that out, but we did it. All right. Let me see if we can weed through all this. See what you folks got. Going to take it all the way back to the start. And I'm going to read comments and open up phone lines very soon. We got Eric here. Mark is going to have to explain his metrics on this until he is laid in the blue in the face. Okay. All right. Ultimate loser. Well, UConn, UMass. Yes, there it is, Hummus Hero. You've got the candidates right there. Malik Curtis, the next Devin Hester, called it. Joey's here. Good to see you. Let's get through these comments. Anybody with anything? Let's see. Once I started to round these into form, we've got Keynes 2022. Appreciate you admonishing everyone to hit the like button. Railroad Journeys. Hi, Mark. Have a blessed day, man. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you for that. Let's Toast Media. Good to see you, as well as Demetrius Abrams. Canes 2022 wanted a top 30 ranking. You got a 16 ranking out of me. How about that? Ed Rogers says the EPI, whatever in the hell that is, has the Ohio State University at number 1. Again, this is not the ranking for 2022. This is a program ranking. All right. All right. It will take forever to go through these comments, so we're going to fire up the phone lines. I will go through the comments while we've got viewers on the phone, so bear with me. Let's get another comment on the screen. What do we got here? How did I rank UTEP so low? It is not a yearly ranking. It is based on your program status. They had one good season. That's why they were so low. NCAA playoff. All right, folks, let's get this underway.
That was an invalid number.
Oh, was it?
Please re-enter your show or meeting number, followed by the pound. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You have not started a show session in Collins Studio and cannot yet receive calls on MarkRogersTV.
Sorry for the delay, folks, but I hate to fire up the phone lines and waste all that money for an hour and 15 minutes. When we start making the real money, then maybe I'll waste the phone lines for that long. All right.
Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your...
Okay, folks, the phone lines are open here at 860-499-3332. Let me call up the graphic so everybody knows where they can find us. There we go. Tickers on the bottom of the screen, 860-499-3332, right here at the Voice of College Football. Should I take a guess who the first caller is? All right, here we go. Welcome in.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? It's Michael.
Michael, what's going on, man?
Not much. I somewhat agree with where you have Purdue ranked 34th, but I do got to take you to this. So, did you take injuries or your consideration too? Because on how they would have factored into the seasons and stuff like that. Because in 2019, Purdue was literally snake bit.
Michael, if I factored in injuries for 130 football teams over the course of 5 years, this is all I would be doing with my life.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering because I think Purdue would have been. I mean, had that not happened, Purdue would have been like maybe a 9-win team. Would they've been higher up? Do you think, or
if Purdue would have won 9 games instead of whatever they won that season, 4?
Yeah,
they would be higher.
Because. Mm-hmm.
I'm looking more at where the program stands right this second, but yeah, what's happened in the past has a reflection on that.
Okay, I was just wondering stuff like that because they was competitive in a lot of the games, even though they lost. It looked like a lopsided score, but it was competitive and stuff until like late in the fourth quarter or stuff. I was just wondering how you based it on. I didn't know if you did it because of that or what the criteria was. That's what I was just trying to figure out. But anyway, I thought Purdue might have been maybe inside the top 25 to top 30 team, but 34 is where that you can work out and stuff. So,
Michael, it's not about the team necessarily. Yes, the 2021 team and the projected 22 team, yes, has a large bearing on it. But again, I'm not saying that Purdue, where were they ranked? 30th, 34th, whatever they were.
34th.
34. Not saying they're the number 34 team in the country.
Okay. I was just wondering because I didn't know how the ranking system stuff worked. That's what I was just trying to figure out. Anyway, great show as always. So thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. Have a good one. All right, here we go. Next up at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
You know, I would have bet that you were the first caller.
I know I got beat. I can't believe it.
Michael was upset about
Michael.
he was
beat
upset
me.
about the Purdue ranking, so you didn't stand much of a chance tonight.
Yeah, I know. I tried informing him before the video would come out. Said, Purdue been inconsistent a little bit over the last 5 years, unlike my Kentucky Wildcats. Thank you, Mark, for having us at 12. Here's a stat I'm sure you're aware of if we're doing the last 5 years. But do you know what teams have won a bowl game each of the last 4 years?
The last 4 years. So that's 2018, 19, 20, and 21. Well, you've made it easy on me. How many are there? How many do I have to get?
There's 2.
Okay, Kentucky's one of them, because I can tell you who they won against those 4 years. The other one that's won for, are they in the Power
They're pretty good
5?
in your rankings, Mark. I would actually say they're in the top 5 of your rankings.
They're in the top 5.
Yeah.
Not Alabama, not Ohio State, not, wait a second, Georgia, not Georgia, Oklahoma, not in 2018, no. Notre Dame, no. Texas A&M, Texas A&M, Texas A&M. 18.
Well, I thought maybe I got my stat wrong because I had Alabama as the team that did it.
They just lost the national championship game.
Yeah, but they didn't win a bowl game this year.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking at an undefeated record for the last 4 years. That's what that's what I thought you were going for.
Okay. Well, I think Kentucky would be the only one with an undefeated record. But another question I would have for it is, how much is inconsistency in terms of going from 2-10 to 12-2 to back down instead of just being on a smooth plane like Kentucky, Iowa, Wisconsin factor into your rankings?
Well, it depends what's been the stability at head coach. And that's another factor in the rankings is how much does that 5-year record, how legitimate is that now? If that's FAU and Lane Kiffin built most of those wins and now he's gone and he's long gone, well, that's a different program than it was 5 years ago. For Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, those are the programs exactly the same as what it was 5 years ago. For Ryan Day, even though he's a newer coach and Urban Meyer was the coach, the Ohio State football program is the same today as it was 5 years ago. It all depends on the circumstances of as to how much that 5-year record is meaningful.
Okay, and how do you determine a team like USC who is presumably having a massive upgrading coach?
Yeah.
How did that impact the rankings?
Well, it impacted greatly because if Clay Helton had gone 4-8 and somehow survived and kept his job, USC wouldn't be ranked 23rd. I would have ranked them, 50. I don't know what I would have ranked them exactly. Oh, it has a lot to do with it.
Okay, and what was the hardest team to rank?
Well, as soon as you bring up USC, I think there's a collection of schools that have so many superior pluses, but they've had such lack of expectations met. USC, Texas, and some others. Those are the first two that come to mind. LSU now with 2 bad seasons in a row. Florida. But the most difficult because of the recent situation is Auburn.
Okay. And I know this is a future question, but do you think Brian Harsin survives the 2022 season?
No.
Okay. Well, Mark, that's all I got for you. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and let's try to get Mark's Notre Dame channel to 1,000 subscribers.
I like that. All right, man. Have a good night.
You do the same.
Yeah, head on over to our Notre Dame channel. Check it out. And we've got our guy, Nathan Urbach. We got Mason Plummer does some content for us. Of course, Brian Driscoll jumps on, and we've got a conversation with him every so often. And Ben Belden, some really good Notre Dame talk on our Notre Dame channel. Get us up to 1,000 subs. And we would be mighty happy for that. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Lomansky, Mark.
Lemansky, what's going on?
Really compliment you on the hard work you did. Like your rankings from top to bottom for the most part. I think it's interesting. I don't have a hard opinion on USC and Oklahoma. I think it'll be very interesting. This is about programs, of course. I think you've got more, what do you want to call it, a foundation of your ranking with the Oklahoma program than the USC program. I guess a little higher on the combination of Venerables and the program stability than I have on USC. I'm going to jump right into quarterbacks. I respect your ranking of Iowa and Wisconsin. I think both programs have better quarterback play. They could go up in the ratings, but they don't. Really like your Kentucky rating as far as quarterback play, stability, and coach. The only one I want to dive into, because you're going to have a lot of interest in this program, it's a great topic, is the Oklahoma is sitting right next to Michigan. I think you had Oklahoma 7 and Michigan at 8.
Yes.
And I'm guessing I don't give Harbaugh at Michigan as much credibility as Venerables coming into Oklahoma, mainly because Venerables has Oklahoma roots. I know his history. I know Harbaugh's history. I just can't see those programs next to each other. And I think your validity of the 22 season with the programs, you'll have a much better shot of looking good with Oklahoma at 7 than Michigan at 8. I don't want to call Harbaugh a one-hit wonder at Michigan, but when I look at the Michigan program, I think they benefit by Ohio State just having a blip in their defensive side of the ball, their ability to beat Ohio State. And I'll leave it at that and listen.
Well, I basically ranked all the programs where I believed that they belonged. I think Michigan had a slightly better football team this past season than Oklahoma, and they brought in a recruiting class that was a couple notches higher than Oklahoma's in 2022. So despite the coaching circus on display for the past 6 weeks, Michigan still out-recruited Oklahoma coming off a season in which they were better than Oklahoma. I still believe that based on a number of things that you cited, that Oklahoma's still slightly better. Thus the 7 versus 8 ranking.
How close were you to dropping Michigan a little lower than 8?
Oh, yeah. But you got to look at the teams that I had just below them. Like there are a few programs that have, so you've got your programs that are elite. Okay. There's only 4 or 5. And then you've got your programs that you just cited, like Kentucky, Iowa, Wisconsin, that are rock solid, steady. And we pretty much can predict where they're going to be year to year. And then somewhere in between, you've got a lot of programs that have a lot of enormous pluses, but they've not been performing Michigan, of course, has, or at least did this past season, and Oklahoma has across the board. They do have a first-year head coach. So Brent Venables, for as well respected as he is, still is a first-year head coach who has not proven to be a head coach. But I'm talking about programs like Florida, Ole Miss, LSU. All these programs, even Penn State has not been good the last 2 years to warrant the ranking. Like I could certainly see all sorts of people calling in and saying, why is Penn State number 10 in the country? And I would say, I understand your point. If somebody presented my rankings to me, I'd probably shoot a hole in half of it too. So I think I'm looking at, if we're looking at the top 30% of college football, those are kind of the three type programs we have. We have the elites, we have the steady programs like Wisconsin and Iowa and Kentucky. And then we have these just bastions of wealth and resources and recruiting footprint, but they've had coaching issues and coaching changes. And I'm looking at Texas and USC and LSU, and Michigan almost was one of those. And aside from that 2-4 finish in 2020, Harbaugh's been winning 9 or 10 games every year.
Who do you have? Could you repeat your number 11, number 10, and number 9 team?
So at I've got, after Michigan at 8, Oregon 9, Penn State 10, Wisconsin 11, Kentucky 12.
I could move some teams around between 8 and 12, and I just can't give program stability at Michigan, given the lift that I think you may have or may not have given for 1 year with the status of the program 12 months ago versus now. I can move those teams, or I can put Michigan right with the Kentucky, even below or above them. That's the only one that I have any strong feelings of your rankings. And I'm an Iowa graduate, so I think you got Iowa right. And I know the Big Ten better than any other conference, but
I understand.
That's where you like to debate.
I understand your knock on Michigan, but Kentucky, I would guess that if this list went to thousands of people, which hopefully it eventually will, that most people would think I have Kentucky overranked. Kentucky was just 4-6. They are 5-6 with a bowl win just a year ago.
Let's go 9, 10, 11, because I'll give in to your point there. Let's go 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, Oregon, Penn State, Wisconsin.
Do I have a leg to stand on in any of those three, or you want to stand pat on your argument versus mine?
Oregon just got obliterated by Utah twice, and they play in a much worse conference, so they therefore play a much easier schedule than Michigan. And they've changed head coaches. So while the Michigan situation seems unstable to a certain extent, they have the same head coach. Oregon's got a new head coach who, again, hasn't proven anything. I think he's a good hire. I'm not going to rank Oregon above Michigan when the wins that they're achieving are against worse competition, and they're coming off a 10-4 season. Michigan's coming off 12-2, and Oregon's changing its coaches. And Penn State's certainly going 11-11 the last 2 years. I'm not going to rank them ahead of Michigan.
I'll wave a white flag and let you continue on the program. My compliments to all your work.
Well, I appreciate it. You don't need to do that. That's for sure. That's why I'm here to take some shots, and I want to hear from everyone, because I have never pretended any kind of rankings that I come up with to be perfect. Just sensical. That's it.
And I'll change my. I shouldn't do this because this is program ranking, so I'm cheating, and your viewers know I'm cheating. I think when we go through the 22 season, I think Penn State and Kentucky, I won't group Oregon in there, but I think Kentucky and Penn State will really be hard to handle when you compare them to Michigan. I think those two programs will surpass them in your next rating in 23, but I might even bet on it. But thanks for your work on the rankings. I really enjoy it. I'll hang out.
Hey, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Here we go, right here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome in. Who's on the line?
This is Chris
Hey, Chris.
from Colbert, Oklahoma.
How's it going?
How you doing?
I'm
Big
good.
fan, man. I'm doing good. Good. Well, I had a few things that I wanted to touch on. Kind of how obviously I'm a huge Oklahoma fan, big fan. I watch your OU show all the time, and I
Nice.
follow them probably about as close as any team. Anybody could follow a team. I'm constantly, on there. But my one kind of couple gripes is I know kind of your parameters on how you were ranking the teams, but how Notre Dame and Texas A&M were ranked above us. I mean, I know it's kind of program based, but if you just go back and look in the last 15 years, there's really not a team or a program that's had the stability and the, win as much games as Oklahoma does. But just, this year, I mean, coming from where Brent Venables picked up the program, and I think he's already made it better. But I just don't see how you could put Texas A&M for sure. They haven't won a conference championship in 20-something years. And, I mean, they lost 4 or 5 games this year. And so I could almost live with Notre Dame over Texas A&M, but I was just kind of curious on how you came up with that.
Sure. Well, I understand your concern and the criticism. Just understand that it doesn't matter in these rankings what happened 20 years ago. And if Texas A&M had never won a conference championship in its history, and they had finished the last 4 seasons making the playoff and coming within a whisker of winning a national championship, then they might be the number 2 program in the country. So what happened 20 years ago? Now, somebody could argue, well, Mark, you included records that go back 5 years. Well, I'm trying to give some kind of basis to a trend line or what the program has done recently that could be relevant. Again, it depends on the program. Some of these programs have gone through 3 coaches during those 5 years, and they're a much different program, and it's a guessing game as to how they're going to progress with a new coach this season, or maybe they had a first-year head coach this past season, while other programs are stable and sturdy, and you know exactly what they are. So Texas A&M is significantly. I'm trying to take all this into consideration, all these factors into consideration. Okay. What is most important in this is what happened on the field this past year, and how does that project to next season and let's say the next season? So Oklahoma was probably a better football team than Texas A&M this past season. Probably not by much.
Yeah.
But they had a better record, but they play in a easier conference. But Texas A&M is crushing it on the recruiting path. They have a proven head coach. I have little doubt that Brent Venables is going to be a tremendous head coach, but he's not one right now. So they took a bit of a slight on that. And also understand that there's not necessarily the same separation between all these slots. There could be a drop off between 15 and 16, but 21 through 32 could be razor thin.
Okay. Yeah, I completely understand. And that was my only thing. And, like I said, I'm a diehard OU fan, and, but at the same time, I'm very practical in the way I look at my team. And And my only thing with A&M is that I just think they still have a lot to prove. He has recruited. Jimbo's done a heck of a job out there recruiting, however he did it, whatever it may be. But all in all, I think that program still has a lot to, and I heard you say it earlier, they still have, to get their butt in gear because this year right here, if they can't make a jump, with all the way they recruited and, all the talk coming out of there, and I just, in my opinion, I think over the next few years, Oklahoma will be a better program and is a better program.
Yeah, well, that has been the case over the past, like you say, the past 15 years. And it's going to be even easier to measure here as soon as Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC, start playing.
Absolutely. I'm ready for that. Well, all right, Mark. Well, I sure appreciate you. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I watch yours and Jason Ray show every Wednesday, and
nice.
I'm rooting for you, man. Have a good one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Falconer X, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Can always count on Falconer X with the super sticker. I don't even know where you find those things. There's the super chats available for everyone, but the super sticker, Falconer X always pulls through with one of those and says here, I just heard Notre Dame may hire Al Golden as defensive coordinator. Could this be true? I hope they take him. I can't imagine. Can't imagine. That is under consideration by Marcus Freeman. Could be. And then we got Falconer X says, as a Miami guy, tell these schools the head coach position is not an on-the-job training position. Yes, Miami's tried that in the past. It does not work. Leave those guys to coach at Temple. And I believe we've got another super chat coming in here. Let me try to find it. Possibly. I will search for it as we take our next call. Who's next up here at the Voice of College Football? We thank you for calling. Hello?
Hi, it's Eric.
Hey, Eric.
I wanted to ask you about something that I just saw recently. It's like relegation, I think is what it is called. Basically, if each the Power Five and the Group of Five each coupled up, the Pac-12 with the Mountain West, for example.
Yeah.
And the team, like if the Pac-12 team, the Power 5 team that at the bottom that finished last would go to the Mountain West and vice versa. So, and they were talking about how like it could make, an end of the season Vandy game really important. I don't know if it would be like for a couple of years you get relegated to the other conference or if it's changing year by year, but have you heard of that and what do you think?
Well, this is the soccer model, correct?
Yeah.
So you were talking to someone who knows less about soccer than anyone on the planet. I just know they kick a ball up and down a field. That's all I know about soccer. But I know that this has been proposed for college football. It's fun to think about and interesting to talk about, but the reason it's never going to happen is you're going to have all the schools agree to this. And they don't want to put themselves in jeopardy of losing their status. So if you had an organization that was in charge of all of this, like the NFL or Major League Baseball, then they could implement this. But you have to have the schools agree to do this. And the schools that are playing in Power 5 conferences would never subject themselves to that. Plus, it would tear the fabric of rivalries apart.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I gotcha. That's really.
Are you only talking about the last place team in all these conferences getting ditched?
I mean, I haven't worked out my own model. I ran into it for the first time last night, just on YouTube somewhere late, and it was really interesting. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, people bring it up here from time to time, and it is interesting, and it would possibly kick a few programs in the rear end to get them going. I think we're talking about fantasy.
Yeah, that's kind of I thought it was brilliant at first, and when I woke up and thought about it a little bit more, and before calling, I was like, it can't. There's too many moving parts. There's nothing that indicates that could or would happen. But thank you. I thought your ratings or rankings, whatever, were really good. I thought they were fairly accurate. I didn't take issue with really any of them. So.
Well, thank you for that. They certainly can be debated. There's no question. They're not perfect, and there's a lot of different ways to look at all of this. So that's why I like to get the feedback from all of you. Well, Eric, thanks for calling.
Yeah, have a good night.
Yep, you too. So last offseason, I just produced a video and ran through my 1 through 130 rankings, and that was all there was to it. And there were comments made to the video, but I just thought it would be more fun to present them live and have all of you give me your feedback. We've got War Deer Entertainment, WCBI alumni. It's Warren here. Hope you are well. Warren, you sent this about, oh my goodness, like an hour ago. So I hope you're still watching and listening. This is my man, Warren. I'm not going to say his last name because maybe he doesn't want that to be out there. I don't know. So Warren was, we had all sorts of fun. This guy, I hope he's watching right now. I think we're still Facebook friends. If we're not, something got screwed up. I got shut down on Facebook about a year and a half ago, so I lost a ton of friends, and then I couldn't remember who I was friends with and all of that business. But yeah, Warren and I worked together down in Mississippi many, many years ago. And Warren is, I still remember, Warren, you are one of the funniest guys on the planet. One of the funniest guys on the planet. So thanks for stopping by. It was great to hear from you. And I'll look you up on Facebook. That is funny. I remember us probably 3 or 4 times playing football in the parking lot of the WCBI parking lot at like midnight after the news. And yeah, who knows what else. All right. Anything else? Let me take a call, and then we'll check out some other super chat comments. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
Hey, George. What's going on?
You know what?
Yeah.
You know, some people do puzzles to maintain their brain elasticity.
Yeah.
Or read dictionaries or encyclopedias, just something to keep their brain going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never going to have a problem with that if you keep doing this. How do you do this? I don't even understand how you do it.
Yeah, I'll be like 92 years old, and I'll be ranking college football teams from like 1984 and going through all sorts of quarterback ratings. And
it'll be 2060, and you'll be going, I remember in 84, Miami versus Nebraska or something like that. 83. Yeah. They'll be like 83.
That is going to be me.
Anyway,
nobody's going to be watching me, but I'll be on here rambling.
I just watched the whole show. I think it's fair. Florida's at 21, but I got Florida's schedule in my head, and I can't remember every number. This only take 1 second. Utah, what number were they? 10, 11.
Utah
12?
is 15. Let me double check. I think they're 15. Yes, 15.
So if we win that game, we just beat a top 15 team, right? The next game's Kentucky. What were they? 10?
12. Yeah. Look at that.
12?
Yep.
And then it's USF. And I would make a joke about them, but we just got our ass kicked by UCF, so I'll just hold my breath on that one. And then we got Tennessee. What were they?
Tennessee is checking in at 29.
And then, thank God, our one easy game all year, we got Eastern Washington, because Jim McElwain used to coach there, and he did them a favor by they're going to fly from Washington to Florida to play us in the swamp. God bless those young men. And we better not take them for granted either. And then there's Missouri. What were they?
We've got Missouri at 44.
Damn. Tennessee 29, Missouri 44. They that bad?
They're not bad.
I don't
They
know
went
about
6 and
that.
7. You know Tennessee Tennessee beat Missouri by 4 touchdowns.
These rankings you just gave, are you projecting for next year based on past performance, or what is this?
Well, there's somewhat of a projection there, but this is where the program stands right this second. Where the
I'm just
football
saying, this
program
is how a
stands.
football.
Yes.
This is how a football schedule should look. Utah, Kentucky, USF, Tennessee, Eastern Washington, Missouri. Next, we have LSU. What'd you have them at?
LSU is at 13.
And then we have Georgia. What do you got them at?
Number 2.
Number 2. Then we have Texas A&M. Where are they?
5. Ooh, you guys have
5.
Texas
And then we have
A&M this
South
year.
Carolina.
Ooh,
And then we have South Carolina. They're, what are they, 50 or something?
43.
43. But they got that stud quarterback,
Mhm.
Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
All these games are interesting. Tennessee's quarterback, Missouri. My God, Missouri got some 5-stars this year. A receiver, like the best receiver in the country. You know, I don't know why. LSU looked good. Georgia looked good. Texas A&M, OMG. South Carolina, even them, they got Spencer Rattler. And then there's Vanderbilt. And Florida knows better than to take Vanderbilt for granted. We've had close games with them repeatedly. The worst team in the league.
Let's make sure we account for Vandy's ranking. They are 105.
Thank you. Okay, we got to throw them in there. And then an honorable finish with Florida State.
Florida State at 46.
See? What a schedule. Wow, that's a rough stretch. LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, South Carolina. Oh, and Missouri first. Missouri, LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, South Carolina. Wow. Utah, Kentucky, USF, Tennessee. That's a good schedule. This is why people love football. I'm hyperventilating. I'm ready.
It's a tough schedule.
Yeah. I hate it when I look at Alabama's schedule sometime and they just don't play nobody. I'm like, how's that even possible in the SEC that they can arrange their schedule? And it's like nobody, you know, like, how's that possible?
Do you know who Alabama plays in the East? Well, they always play Tennessee. Do you know who their other team that they play in the East this year? Just guess. Just based on what you just said.
I'm going to guess Vanderbilt or South Carolina.
Playing Vandy.
That's what I'm talking about. Who does this? How many years in advance do they do it?
Well, that game's rotated. They rotate. Who did Alabama play this past year? They played. Shoot, who did they play?
Somebody, sorry.
They played Tennessee and I think Missouri.
Something like that. Why don't they let them play Georgia? You know how much money that game would be worth?
No, they played you guys. That's right. They played Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were we were respectable. Do you think Dan Mullen will ever get another head coaching job after that freak show he did at Florida? He could have done what he did and not acted weird. It would all be okay. It's his weird act, the way he acts about it, you know?
Yeah, he could have survived a bad season. He could have survived one bad season after he went 10-3, 11-2. Then he went to an SEC championship game. Yeah, he could have survived one 6-6 season. Just don't act like a buffoon. Don't cause a big circus. Don't say stupid things.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't try to start fights with Derek Mason.
Yeah.
Don't try to start riots in the middle of the field. By the way, I was watching golf yesterday, the waste management thing in Arizona. Did you see that hole-in-one that guy made?
I did not. I watched no golf.
All right, you got to check this out. I've never seen nothing like it. It was like a South Carolina football game. The guy made a hole-in-one, and at least 300 or 400 people threw their beer cans onto the putting green, shook them up, and threw them out on the putting green. I'm like, what am I watching? And all the commentators were going, I've been here a long time, but I've never seen this shit before. Isn't that hilarious? Y'all should go Google that shit.
I'll give it a look.
Who does that? Who shakes their beer can and throws it onto the green celebrating a hole-in-one?
Yeah, maybe golf is
And once they
loosening
start-
up a little bit. Maybe it's
I remember we were playing, I think it was South Carolina, and they were pelting us with water bottles. I'm like, is that legal? Is that a felony? Like, can you throw a bottle full of water at somebody and hit them in the head?
see, I'm all with American
so-
Football Network here. If Dan Mullen would have gotten a piece of Derek Mason, he would have not wanted anything to do with that.
Yeah, I listened to that shit for 6 months after it happened. Everybody was going, are you crazy? I mean, one of them looks like he might be in shape, and the other one looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy, you know? Hey, in the Super Bowl, our player ran out on the field. I told you this last night, in his shorts and underwear or whatever. He was off duty, injured reserve, and got the team a penalty celebrating an interception.
Do you know who that was?
Vernon Hargreaves III. Good defensive back.
Former Gator.
I'm just thinking it's all entertainment at this point, and having The Rock introduce the game like it's WWF. We just get ready to rumble, you know? With that one eyebrow thing. Can you do the eyebrow thing?
Like that? I can do it.
Never mind.
You see?
Like the Rock. Oh, I'm not watching. I just looked at
That's
the
it right
screen.
there.
Can you
Here
do
is.
it?
I got it.
Do they have to cut like a ligament or something so you lift your eyebrow up like that? Is there a surgery involved?
Did you see my Rock imitation? Did you see my eyebrow?
No, I'm watching on my tablet, but I didn't see it. I don't
10
know if I'm
seconds
30
behind.
seconds ahead of you or behind. I'll go back and find it.
You're definitely not ahead.
There's a real delay here between me on the phone and what I'm seeing on the screen. Some guy mentioned that in the chat because he was on hold too. He was talking about how it doesn't sync, you know. But I don't care about that. I read the chat while I'm talking to you more than I watch you.
The real MVP
Nothing personal.
thinks that you are the greatest caller of all time.
Who said that?
The real MVP.
Hey, the real MVP 24. He's been here forever, man. Good guy. I like that other guy too that does super chat sometimes. Says if I call in, he'll do $100 super chat. Who does that?
I kind of like him too. It helps the cause.
God bless rich people. Thank God for rich people. Otherwise, who would we work for? Actually, you're doing it for yourself. You need a benefactor. Hey, call Catholic Charities. They have all the money in the world.
Catholic Charities.
Don't do that. Never mind. Bad idea. But they do.
The obvious contributor to a college football show.
My brother's married to a girl. Her sister works for Catholic Charities, and all she does is write grants for a living. You need to talk to her and get a grant. You don't have to pay these back. My brother said she just got someone $1 million the other day. They said they need $1 million. She said, I can't get you $1 million, but I can get you $20,000-$50,000 grants. And they said, okay. And she got them 20 grants for $50,000 each, you know?
George, what you just suggested is maybe the best suggestion you've ever had, because that should involve next to no work. I can Google it. How do I get a grant? And hey, if I can get a grant, why not?
Mark, you remember when we used to have things called...
Yes.
When we used to have books and people read books, I went to Barnes & Noble once. And I went in there every day and I read this book about getting grants. It took me like a week. You know, I'd get a Starbucks and read the book. It really gets in there, you know. I mean, there's so much shit to know. That's why the people that write grants that already know the shit are valuable when you got to pay them, you know, because they already know. They know who will give you money for this, who will give you money for that. If you start out from scratch, that'd be a bear. You know what I mean? There's so much to know. And, you know, there's laws in America about giving people money. There's laws in every country on this earth about giving people money. You can't go and just give someone money. Otherwise, that would upset the whole apple cart, you know? Like in Thailand or some of those poor countries where they have all these aid agencies, you can't give someone $1. If you gave them $1, they would be able to buy their way out of slavery from their local lord, you know, that runs the village and shit like that. They get them into debt for like 12 cents when they're 8 years old, and they never can get their way out of it because $1 would upset the whole apple cart. And literally, if something like that is like $20 would upset everything. Everyone could buy their freedom, you know?
So we've got people tuning into the college football 1 through 130 rankings, and we are listening to this as
I was just joking around. That guy in the chat just asked me what part of Portland I live in. I live in Southeast Portland. It's right on the edge of what they call felony flats.
Hey, I'm getting more comments to keep you on the air and on the phone than not. So, hey, Eric
as
is
long
speechless.
as long as they don't click off, I'll stay. As long as they don't all hang up on us.
Falconer X is saying, I just gave $2.12. Did I break the law? And Erica says, I'm speechless here. MS says, George the GOAT. Trucking with Mother. This is great. Let him keep talking. Exploring with Ben. George can stay on the phone as long as he wants.
Hey, listen, life was so much more fun when we all read books and researched shit on our own. Now all we do is look at our news feed. This is fucked up. I know all kinds of shit because I read books that there's no one to discuss it with no more. Everybody wants to tell me what's on their freaking news feed or what just popped up on their Black Mirror screening. What do they call them? Scrying mirrors. That's what, you know how it went mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? That's what these phones are. Ask your phone, say, am I beautiful? It'll go, of course you are. You're wonderful. I love you.
Tim says you're voice of college football royalty.
Well, that's like someone calling you sir and you say, don't call me sir. You know? But thanks anyway. I know it was good intentions.
MS says, you need to get this guy a channel. I need to get him a channel. He can get his own channel.
My app.
What do I have to do with it?
Hey, listen, I'll do a, what do you call that? I did it with Pete once, live stream. I'll do that with you once a month. Do that. It's funny shit, man.
Falcon
and I'll try to
finance it.
I'll try not to do it on a side channel. I don't want to get your regular channel in trouble. You'll have to direct us to Mark Rogers 2 or something, you know?
Mark Rogers 2. Well, yes.
Yeah. So when it shuts down, it won't hurt this channel.
Yes, that's another reason why we've got 25 of these.
The people that are saying they want to see me, I did a Saturday StreamYard with Pete. If you go to his videos and you scroll back a couple months, there's only one video StreamYard on Saturday.
Okay.
It was freaking hilarious. It took me hours to figure out how to do that. I don't even know if I could do it again, but I think I could. You click on that link the guy provides you, and then you follow the instructions, you know? God, it took me forever to do that.
You and Pigs again?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, my God, Mark. You'll be just rolling on the floor laughing.
Tim Prankley is sponsoring the next 5 minutes of George for $10. Let's see. 10, I make 6 for 5 minutes. I'm making $1 a minute. $60.
I saw that.
Yeah, let's
it's the thought that counts, man.
Bit.
Hey, Falconer X said nobody wants to see you. We want to listen to you. That's even easier for me. Then I don't have to get a shower and get dressed. You know? Oh, fuck. It's fucking 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. I still haven't got a shower because there's just no reason to. Portland is done. Portland's closed. There's nowhere to go. If I don't need to go to the grocery store, I mean, I'm just like, I had to turn my lights on in the house at like 3 in the afternoon because it's so dark outside because the sky's so cloudy. We just had a heat wave for 3 days. It was 67 degrees for 3 days, broke every record in Portland. It should have been like 38 or something normally. And now it's so dark out the next day, I can't even, I have to have my lights on in my house in the middle of the afternoon. I've had my lights on for 2 hours. It's 5 now.
The real
Because
MVP
it's just dark
here.
out.
Well, the more daylight is coming, but the real MVP
Hey.
here, the real MVP's got a great idea. We've got a Florida channel, George. I can turn this Florida channel over to you.
The Florida channel.
You head on over.
I don't want to sacrifice the Florida.
What are you going to get me in trouble?
How about Mark?
Well,
How about Mark
that was a
Rogers
stupid
on
question. I know.
No, I'm not going to get you in trouble, but because I'm very careful. Sometimes I say something, you start to comment on my comment, and I cut you off on purpose. I'm like, no, Mark, don't answer. Just let it go. Just let me say it. And let it be sort of half-assed funny. Don't comment back. Don't agree with me. You know what I'm saying? Because you're the guy with the public persona.
Well, I've got a Florida channel.
Yeah, it should be Mark. It should be Mark. It should be make the Mark Rogers non-football channel and give us something to do in the off season a few times in the off season.
I have other things I would like to talk about, but got to keep this college football thing going. So we got our Florida channel. I could give you permissions to it. We give you manager permissions. You go on there and you can rant and ramble all you want. Just mention a little Florida football while you're talking about, your wrestling career and your journeys across America and, the weed that
and
prices.
what goes on in Southeast Asia, even though I've never been there. In all honesty, it's hard being a Florida fan right now. We're in flux. We like our coach, but we know it's going to take a year or 2 or 3 if we're lucky, if we just, we're okay. But Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama, who have all these other teams, everybody, Tennessee, can't take them for granted. We're Florida. We can't take Tennessee for granted. Kentucky, my gosh.
Here's your idea. Here's one that's football related from Exploring with Ben. He says that you should do game reactions right when the game's over. Bam.
I'm not like Uncle Lou. I'm not going to go crazy on my own team if I lose, or those Miami channels. I'm not bad mouthing my own players or coaches.
George, you entertain by just talking. Good, bad, indifferent, rambling, whatever you want to do. You start your channel and or maybe you get on my Florida channel. I'll give you a platform. You can ramble on about the Gators.
Really?
Yes.
Do I got to be on camera to do that?
So it seems as though you don't want to be on camera. We can throw up a graphic. You can just do audio.
Listen, I'm not really adverse to it. It just takes a little more work,
Work?
Just a little bit more.
It takes about as much work as you calling in here a couple times a week.
I'm not really that computer savvy. I just somehow happen to know the little tiny bit I know, and I don't know anything outside that.
I'll tell you exactly
Some
how
guy
it
was
works.
teaching.
So George,
All right, some guy was teaching me one.
With my 25 team channels, I've got about 12 to 15 channels where these guys do post game, like the Notre Dame channel, the Florida channel, whatever. And all they do is I give them my StreamYard login information, but they can't get in until I give them a passcode that StreamYard sends me. I send them a passcode. They can only get in temporarily. I do that with you. You go in there. I can tell you how to do it, and we can build our Florida channel.
Something to think about, man. I'm starting to think about moving to Sarasota again. I'd love to do that with a palm tree behind me and the deep, dark blue skies and the beach. That'd be appropriate. Instead of my freaking, I can't believe it's dark outside at 5 in the afternoon. It's not supposed to get dark till like 8 o'clock at night. And it's not because it's winter time. The days are getting longer, not shorter. We're past the solstice.
Well, George,
I love these.
I really
this
should get to
chat
these other
is just-
calls here.
This chat is just going crazy. Georgia Bulldog just said, who currently runs the Florida channel?
Who
Georgia
runs
Bulldog
it?
Will said that.
Well, most of the
Yeah.
stuff
Who's
is
on
on
it?
there. Well, me. So our guy David Waters from Gators Breakdown, we bring him on all the time. And we got this other guy, Dylan Denmark, who did our Florida post game last year.
It's Dylan. Dylan's the guy I see. He's usually there, right?
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I like him.
Yeah. Our Florida channel's not really humming. It's not really, tearing it up. Need some work. All right, George.
I don't know how you do that. All right. We'll try to figure out how to get people.
Got
All right.
calls
Later,
waiting.
Gators.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, George.
Thanks,
Have a
Mark.
good night,
Bye.
man.
Thanks.
Oh, all right. Here we go into the next call right here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Tim from Southern California. How you doing?
Tim, you going to call me about football?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, I
Good.
was calling because of the list.
Absolutely.
the
We've
list.
got a football
And
call.
I'm not
That's
going to
good
gripe.
hear. No, that's fine. That's why I'm here.
I just want. Well, I still want to sponsor. I'll do another 10 minutes if George can come back on later, but not today.
Yeah. What do you need to know about
But-
the list? What do you like or what don't you like?
No, overall, the list is good. I think, although you did say that you're kind of looking backwards, I can't imagine a program. I'm looking on that whole list from going all the way up. You look at USC, and I'm not even looking at the number. The number is what it is. And again, after last year, after 3 years ago, they have been up and down. But it wasn't too long ago that even Helton. This is my whole point to my friends. Helton had USC twice in the top 10 recruiting classes, and this is Helton with a bunch of guys that didn't recruit. We haven't had an offensive line coach in I don't know how long. You bring in guys. That's my biggest point. Is the one. I mean, Riley's amazing in the offense, but the fact of having USC with a real offensive line coach in Josh Henson for the first time in I don't know a decade that we've had a solid offensive line coach. I mean, you're looking at Tony Bazzelli. I'm looking at guys like that, and they also had. I went to the basketball game, and you had Tony Bazzelli, and you had Anthony Munoz. And I'm looking at the offensive linemen USC has had over the years.
Yep.
I'm really thinking that Josh Henson can start pulling those guys back in, and if we can recruit nationally on the offensive line, it's gonna be lights out. There's this guy, David Woods. He was talking about USC and the floor. He's saying the floor for USC is pretty much what you saw at Oklahoma. And I don't really think many people can argue that. I honestly don't. The recruiting in Southern California, when you have recruiters like Riley, Dante Williams, Dennis Simmons, these guys are top national recruiters. And these guys are going to hit it hard. They're not going to sit back and Riley's not going to sit back and let his staff not recruit like Hilton was just horrible. Once now USC has gotten past self-sanctioning, because that's what we did. We got hit by the NCAA first. And then we got hit by guys like Swan and Hayden hiring. I mean, what was Helton doing at USC for 7 years? How long would OSU, Alabama, how long would those guys allow a clown? Sorry, I shouldn't say it. A coach like that who really was a great guy, worked hard, but he just was not a very good coach.
Yeah.
How long would a decent program? And then here's the problem, because we didn't have ADs. We had ex-football players who had no reason or right to be there as an AD. And the whole program, how many teams on that list has thrown $100 million towards a coach? Went out and got one of the top 3 coaches, top 4 coaches, top 5 coaches in the country. I just think we've seen the nadir of USC football, because anybody who's been following USC football or even college football, if you give USC a good coach, let alone a great coach, then it's just lights out. So I was just curious, your ranking. I mean, I see him at 23. I'm guessing that's because we're looking at, Helton and Swan and not paying your assistant coaches and just having a bunch of cronies running around Heritage Hall. I mean, I really do think that you guys are going to see a big difference. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what we're going to do, because obviously they haven't done anything, but I can't imagine the staff that he has going forward and the recruiting pool we have in Southern California, as well as USC locks it down locally. And then again, like Pete Carroll did, like Kiffin did, Kiffin would have had a hell of a run if he wasn't working with the sanctions that he had. And he ran out in 2013. I mean, he had a preseason ranked top 10. But the problem is there was no depth on either line at all. So I'm just hoping that they can actually get some recruits in and keep them at home. And if they do, then I don't think there's anybody on that list that SC can't play with.
So maybe I can square up the ranking this way. If you took USC for the past 3 football seasons, I believe they went 5-7 when JT Daniels was a freshman. Then they went 5-1 and went to the Pac-12 championship game, but that was only a short season. Didn't really prove that much. They played a lot of close games against bad teams. And then they went 4-8 and they were awful. Okay. If we just took that sample of football, they should be like 65 or 70 in the country. Okay. If we were looking at Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff he's putting together and the transfers that he's getting in and the recruiting class he's putting together for 23 and looking forward to, let's say, 2 years from now, they could be exactly what you're talking about, a team that runs the Pac-12 and is getting to a playoff. Okay, right this second, when I take all these factors into consideration, I'm not saying I nailed it because I don't know. Nobody can nail it. It's an arbitrary number to a certain extent. This is about where I think they are right now as a football program right this second. They have all this baggage, all this garbage. They have a depleted roster. They just had one of the best coaches take them over. He's restructuring his staff. He's adding transfers, but they're only going to plug so many holes. I think 23 is a good place. I think if they went out with this football team right now and had to play football next month, that they wouldn't be one of the 5 or 10 best teams in the country, and they wouldn't be a train wreck that they were last year. They would be much improved. That's what I'm trying to rank.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not saying they're a top 15 team on that ranking. I'm looking at more of a program. I'm maybe not looking at the definition properly. I was just saying that, again, for about the better part of a decade, USC just has not done anything to support that program at all. And now I'm seeing them dump 100. This is blowing my mind. I was hoping we were to pull Campbell or, Luke Fickell. That was my dream. Oh, we need this guy.
Sure.
And then when they dropped Lincoln Riley on us, it's more than anything, not the name. It's just that they're willing to put that kind of cash in. I'm not talking about Lincoln Riley be this, Lincoln Riley be that. I'm talking about the commitment to football that's been missing. Lincoln Riley could come to USC. Who knows what could happen? I'm assuming, and the odds are it will be a massive improvement. But what I am saying is the fact that USC football just spent over $100 million for a coach who's throwing money at Texas A&M's offensive line coach. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not sure. I don't know what Riley's going to do. I don't know what this team's going to do next year or the year after that. But what I do know is USC now has gone back to saying, I think we want to compete on the national stage in football. And that's where I'm saying as a program, USC turned a big corner.
I'll ask it this way. So you're impressed with the money that was shelled out and the commitment given to Lincoln Riley, even though he may or may not meet expectations. It shows the commitment and the priority that football is at USC, that they determined we want to win and we want to get this right. We got to make a splash higher. Okay. 5 to 6 years from now, I know what could be exceeding expectations, and I certainly know what would not meet expectations. What would be a reasonable expectation of what USC football 5 to 6 years from now looks like?
USC football is historically one of the top 5 programs, and not many people can argue that. And again, it wasn't, like I said, even with Helton 5 years ago, they were a top 10, back-to-back top 10 years.
Yep.
What's the expectation? USC football should be in the playoffs at least every other, if not every 3 years, without a doubt. They won't be close because of their lines for the next couple of years, unless there's some mirror. I mean, I don't know. The way he's pulling in transfers, who knows what they'll do? Who knows after spring? After spring ball, it could be a whole new, just massive amount of guys, 4 or 5 star guys that just aren't where they should be. they're going to have an issue and they're going to want to transfer somewhere where they can play. So where should they be? They should be competing for national championships. That's USC football. I can't imagine any other way. The problem was, again, is they had guys that had no idea what they were doing running that athletic department. And the administration was not behind it. So the fact that they are putting money into this program again and treating it like, because think about the facilities have been horrible. The coaching staffs have been horrible. You have Helton, and I mean, I don't even know some of these coaches. Helton's digging and scraping. We're just begging for offensive coordinators with Harrell and all that other stuff. You know, we're getting turned down left and right. That's not USC football. It's because I think they were going in cheap. They didn't have the commitment that schools like OSU had, Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, the big boys. And then all the fan base of USC want to compare us to the. Oh, they're winning. Well, how come Helton's not getting? Well, Helton's not getting those guys because the athletic department isn't giving him a staff. It has him as the head coach to begin with. The facilities are probably top 25, towards 2030. And then you want to compete with programs like Ohio State, like Georgia, like Alabama, to spend millions on just recruiting alone. I would love to see the budget. The staff, the big thing for years was the size of staff at Clemson in Alabama compared to what USC had for its support staff. They had this tiny recruiting support staff. And yet they wanted to think that we were going to compete on a national level. There's no mistake why SEC, the Big Ten, are where they are, or the or the OUs and the UTs of the world. It's because they put the money and they invest in the program. And so that's why I'm saying when you look at the offensive line, you look at the entire program itself, that Henson hire, the Riley hire, it shows that we're not going for lowballing who we can get in there and who has a USC tie. It's really been impressive. And I'm again, we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't be shocked to see USC in the top 15, maybe go like 8-4, 9-3 next year. And then next year after that, I could absolutely with the offense. Think about this. Imagine Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, Mario Williams, Malik Brown, CJ Williams. Who's going to stop that offense? Even with a decent O-line, let's just say a run-of-the-mill top 20 O-line. Who's going to stop Caleb Williams, Travis Dye's gone after this year, but Mario Williams, Malik Brown, CJ Williams. I'd like to see that defense stop. That would be interesting. Anyway, that's enough venting and ranting. Thank you, Mark.
Good call, man. Thank you so much for checking us out tonight, and call back soon. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Take care.
Before we get to this next call, I want to get to the comment made by Erica. First of all, Erica, thank you so much for being here on a regular basis. We know you love your Hawkeyes, and thank you so much for the contribution. So, Erica, this is a tremendous idea here. So, Erica says, Mark, have you ever considered? No, I haven't. I don't really think outside the box. I'm not an outside the box thinker unless maybe it involves college football. Have you ever considered a Voice of College Football meetup? Could be fun. That would be fun. The only problem we need to figure out would be, okay, it's impossible because there are people watching from all over the country, which is awesome. But where would we make it centrally located so as many people as possible could show up? But you keep that idea. I will keep that idea. And I see a number of people in the live chat that responded favorably to that idea. Yeah, I like that. Question number 2, do you think Iowa's strengths are pushed aside because of our quarterback issues? Well, your strengths are actually magnified because of your quarterback issues, but that's not a good thing. Everyone looks at Iowa and says, man, this team's got a really good defense, and man, they got a really good special teams, and man, the offense sucks. I don't understand it. Every program, aside from a couple great ones, go through their various. The really good ones have an identity, but they still have. They still recruit and address their weaknesses. Wisconsin still produces really good defensive backs and wide receivers, even though they're not at the echelon consistently of the offensive line and the running backs in the front seven on defense. But Iowa, this has been going on, as you well know, because we've been talking about it, and anyway, as a big Hawkeyes fan, year after 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 year, that the quarterback play is not up to any kind of reasonable standard in the Big Ten. Iowa has bottom 3 to 4 quarterback play in the conference, and has for quite some time. But I like your idea with the meetup. I've got a few ideas for that. Not necessarily like where exactly we would meet up, but what city, location. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hi, Mark. This is Caleb.
Hey, Caleb. What's going on tonight?
Just wanted to call in from Husker Nation here. Make sure you tell Greg that I said hello.
I will.
But just wanted to call in and ask you. I know that this year there's been a little bit of hype kind of around what's going on with the program and whatnot, but I really feel like we get that hype every year. And I mean, not paid at all because I love my team, but I'm not sure that they've done enough on the field really to show that they're worthy of the hype. So I don't know where you kind of have them ranked in your 130. I was just kind of calling to ask about that a little bit.
So I've got Nebraska ranked. Let me find it here. I believe they're at 67.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was just wondering, I know that especially with the recruiting class this year, I know they wanted to say like, well, we're looking more for transfers, and they did pretty well there, I'd say. But I don't know if that's really going to carry the weight going forward, like the next, after they're developed, because this is kind of a win now roster that you're kind of seeing in NFL. I mean, I think that's what it's kind of looking like. Everyone's talking about college football free agency, especially with this NIL stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I was just wondering what also you'd think that they might look like record-wise this year.
So just to explain my ranking of 67, if you just took Nebraska's win-loss record from last year and for the past 4 to 5 years, as you well know, they wouldn't be that high. I've got Power 5 programs with better records ranked lower than Nebraska. But I also look at the performance last season and see where they were very close to beating some really good teams. But then on the flip side, again, I go to the recruiting rankings and I see where the recruiting's been what should have placed them in the top 2 to 3 in the Big Ten West. But this next recruiting class that just came in 2022 is not really full with much talent. So looking at the schedule, fortunately for Nebraska, it lightens up considerably compared to what it's been. So I know that I'm going to have to look at it here. Again, I've looked at it enough. I should know it, but so.
Yeah, not that I want to back away from a challenge, but happy not to see Ohio State on there this time around.
Yeah, so you got to win the first game against
Rutgers
Northwestern. Here we go. Northwestern out of the gate. Of course, the game in Ireland, if it in fact gets pulled off, then North Dakota, then Georgia Southern. So you better be 3-0 out of the gate. And then can they beat Oklahoma at home? They could, especially considering they stayed close on the road last year, but most likely they lose that game and they're going to be 3-1. Then they've got Indiana at home. Then they've got Rutgers on the road. They should be 5-1. They should be. My money would be on them tripping up against either Northwestern, Indiana, or Rutgers and being 4-2. But they should be 5-1. Purdue 5-2, Illinois at home. Let's say 6-2, Minnesota 6-3, Michigan. I say they go 6-6.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that. I wouldn't mind 8-10, but I'm not looking. I'm not looking that far ahead. I don't think that's going to happen. But just just had one more question for you, kind of about the Big Ten. I know that they mentioned, I don't know if it's this year or next year, what's going to happen, but they're moving away from the division model. And I was wondering, not just for Nebraska, but the rest of the West, if that potentially is going to help them, hurt them, or not do anything at all. What do you think about that?
So they're talking about it. They haven't decided.
I thought that I thought they voted on it and passed it. So I wasn't sure about that or not.
I may be wrong. The last thing I heard was out of the Iowa athletic director, and that was, what, about 10 days ago? Has there been something else that's come out since then? So anyway.
Yeah, it was about a week and a half.
Okay. So. Well, if they go to non-divisions, I think that the way the power structure currently works, that hurts the West. So who would have made the Big Ten championship game this year? Ohio State and Michigan. Who would have made it in 2020? Ohio State and Indiana. Who would have made it in 2019? Ohio State and, I guess, Wisconsin would have been that second seed. 2018 would have been Ohio State and Michigan. 2017 would have been Ohio State and Wisconsin. So it would push the Western winner out probably roughly half the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a double-edged sword because it makes the conference championship a little more entertaining, but at the same time, I think it disenfranchises, those teams who kind of were like, all right, all we got to do is win our division and get in. But I mean, is that really competition at the same time? So, but yeah, actually, I forgot one last question. It was about the quarterback situation at Nebraska. I know they brought two guys in, and I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think we were going to get somebody like a Casey Thompson or Chubba Purdy, but I have to kind of feel like people are maybe not giving Logan Smothers as fair of a shot, because I know they're going to change the system up a little bit and some of the lingo that they go with, but I feel like he's got to have some advantage in that regard. Or am I just wrong when I think that?
Well, Casey Thompson had a really good season, but it wasn't an All-American season, and he only played about 8 to 9 games. And so it's not a shut and closed quarterback situation for the starting job. So I would hope that Logan Smothers would get a shot. And Logan Smothers has done as much against a good team, Iowa, than Chubba Purdy's not really played against anyone. He's not played much football.
Yeah, his high school highlights are more impressive because, there's more film there. So
yeah.
But just want to get your take. Thanks for your call.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you calling. All right, folks. Thank you for everyone who called tonight. Thanks for checking out our 1 through 130 program rankings. If you missed them off the top, certainly the video is going to post, and so all you need to do is wait for that to happen, and you can check out that. We've got our Tuesday lineup at 5:30 Eastern, Iowa Live on the Hawkeyes channel, and of course Nebraska Live at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Nebraska channel. And so that's your little programming schedule for Tuesday here at the Voice of College Football. Again, that's Iowa Live, 5:30 Eastern on the Iowa channel. Nebraska at 7. And if you want to help us grow the channels, please subscribe to any and all of the channels, including Notre Dame's the closest to 1,000. And that's at the point in which YouTube really starts to take you seriously, is when you get to 1,000 subs. So please subscribe to the Notre Dame channel. And we also have a West Virginia show that Joey, if Joey's still here, is very proud of. Our guy, Joey Foster, West Virginia show on Friday night right here at the Voice of College Football. Joey, we appreciate you being here. There he is. Joey says, a great show, Mark. Take care, everyone, and be sure to smash the like button. And again, just look at Joey's handle. Look at his profile picture. It's Mountaineers all the way for Joey. So WVU is in the house. And there we go. Joey has posted the link in the live chat to the West Virginia channel. So head on over there and give us a sub. And also Notre Dame as well. Appreciate everybody. Justin, great. Thank you so much for that. Those are kind words. And from Erica and Eric. And you guys are amazing, and you keep me going here at the Voice of College Football. Chris, you as well. One Scoop John, great to see all of you. I'm going to miss a zillion people, so I will stop handing out greetings. We'll see y'all back here at 5:30 Eastern on the Iowa channel, Nebraska at 7. And yeah, have a great night. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you, and we will see you next time.